All right, friends. Keeping it hot for you. So, HOTTOGO. Fuck. You got me too. Yeah, I'm with the shits, boy. So, we are going to break down the next cycle of our program. So we're moving into uncharted territory here. So it's going to be cool because you're going to see how things are progressing. So let's just hop right into it, and I'll kind of walk you through things as we go, and kind of piggyback some things off of Coach TJ here, because like I said, we're moving into uncharted territory, and I've gotten it pretty nailed down, as you'll see, but there's still some things, and this is a little rule for life. You know, once you get to about 80% of your like, I know what I'm doing here, or I got it at least a 80% grasp, that once you get to that point, you just got to jump. So we're at that point now to where I've been just thinking about this nonstop for the past week, especially just like multiple hours a day. And this is what we've gotten to, but now it's at the place where we just got to play the game, y'all. We just got to do the damn thing. So this is going to be, here maybe we'll switch roles on this one. This is going to be year one, y'all. We're going into year one. This is the rest year. So let me just spell that out. Year one, quarter one, Q1, which is also rest. So we're going into rest. Right now, we're in peak. So we're going into rest. Okay? So we'll lay it out like we've normally laid it out. That part doesn't change. So the overall big framework doesn't change, as you'll see, but how we're going to be implementing everything, there's a few, not even necessarily adjustments, but just kind of some next level evolutions here that we're getting into. All right, so let's get a little meanie greenie. So, and the way that I actually mapped out this whole next year, because now we are starting officially at the beginning of the year, it kind of works out perfectly to where we are going to have 4 12-week cycles. Well, technically there'll be 13 because we'll have a rest period in between the two. And unlike this year where we're taking a 4-week break at the end of this peak year, this coming up here, the rest year, there'll be a 2-week break at the end of the year. But we'll have like the 1-week break in between each of the different cycles. And then at the end of the year, which again, it's at the end of next year, so a little ways out, but still, just so you have an idea of where things are heading. So we're gonna map this out. We got my little notes here, 1, 2, 3, up to 13. I guess we're getting a little Christmassy. 1, 2,
on a red and green.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever, that's fine, 13. Okay? So, we're gonna rest. This is gonna be our rest week. And this is starting on 1/6, okay? So that's like the first full week of January. So we'll have a 4-week prep cycle, a 4-week build cycle, and a 4-week peak cycle. Again, all this is the same. So prep, build, peak, and then rest. And so the average for the year, if I remember correctly, the average for the whole year is 212. And just to give you a little bit of a perspective, the average for this current peak year is, if I remember right, it's a 325. Okay, so we're going from a 325 for the whole year to a 212 for the whole year. And then the quarter is a 111, because this would be the average So then going from the average to rest is down, down, down 2. So again, this is super rest right now. Okay, so 1, 1, 1. So what that means is, do another color. Sorry, champ. What that means is build is our average. That's a 1, 1, 1. Prep goes up, up, down, but we can't go down any more than 1. So we'll go with 2, 2, 1. Peak goes down, down, up. We can't go down any more than 1. So it turns into a 1, 1, 2. And then rest is just still the same. Okay? Okay. So now we'll break down. Again, all this stuff is all the same. And the cool thing, because we have these neat little 4-week phases here, it breaks down nicely into the rest, prep, build, peak. So rest, prep, build, peak, rest, prep, build, peak, and rest, and prep, and build, and peak. Okay? So we'll break down the numbers for each one of these. So we'll start here. So down, down, down. So that's a 1, 1, or no. Oh yeah, that's right. Down, it says rest, 1, 1, 1. And then prep, we'll go up, up, down, which would just be a 3, 3, 1. Okay, build is the average, 2, 2, 1. And then peak would go down, down, up. All right. And then build, rest, 1, 1, 1. The build phase is kind of interesting because it's at a 1, 1, 1. So it's like, it's actually a little lower than the prep. But you'll see when we kind of break this whole thing out, you'll see how these, like, there's different elements that are going to be at play here. And it's going to allow us to, one, start to, which I'll take a little pause here. So the big result for the end of this year, so as the team, so the 1 year result for the rest year. So the rest year, if you remember, has to do with the winter. So rest is winter, and then the winter is working on kind of the spiritual realm, and it's the air element, okay? And it has a lot to do with building capacity, okay? So all of those things are related and tied into the concept of rest, okay? Whereas, just quickly an example, like prep would be fire element, would be in training purposes more along the lines of strength and hypertrophy work, and then it would be more of the mental kind of training, and then that would also be tied to just overall. So if you're building capacity and kind of just realizing overall possibility and potential within the rest phase, like as a theme, in the prep, it's like, okay, I've seen the bigger picture. I've established, what I feel like I'm truly capable of, and the capacity for these different areas of my life. In the prep year is like, okay, let me start to really hone in on an intention of this is where I want to head. So you'll kind of see that in the big grand scheme of things over the course of the next quad. And then you'll also see that even within the little mini phases and even in the weeks of the different cycles and the different phases of the whole year as a whole. Okay? So the result for the rest year is to establish a baseline of all of the life attributes, because the spiritual component has to do with all of the life attributes. The spiritual component, i.e. the rest, i.e. the air, all the things that I just mentioned, is kind of the foundation underlying all of the different life attributes. And so the end of the year is we want to establish a baseline. Whereas, again, as an example, the prep has to do with the mental component, which would be more focused on novelty, coordination, and communication, because those are the more mentally oriented life attributes. Even though that, again, they're all going to touch on physical, mental, emotional, each one, but just the emphasis of them, those are the three of the mental, okay? So that's the end of that year. And I'm going to actually write this part down. So within each one of the cycles, and this is where we kind of get into one of the next evolutions of what's coming through here. So just like what we've been focusing on is the increasing the Olympic lifting total. So that is a physical result. So within each one of these cycles now, we're not only going to have a physical result, we're going to have a mental and an emotional result, okay? And so the physical result, and this part, I'll be kind of interested to get a little kind of feedback in your perspective. Mm-hmm. So there's a physical, mental, and emotional test. So the physical test, physical, we'll call result / test, is AMRAP. So basically, as many reps as you can at a 3-3-3 tempo overhead squat at 50% body weight, okay? And the reason for this is because, again, the rest theme is all about establishing capacity. And from a training perspective, the rest theme has to do with essentially building the capacity of mobility, stability, and overall conditioning from a physical standpoint. Basically what I did is I broke, I kind of went up the ladder of the very foundational stuff, mm-hmm, all the way to the super specific, which I think I might have mentioned in a little while back, but right. It's like, mobility, stability, conditioning, hypertrophy, strength, power, speed, and I call controlled specific, and then specific performance at the top, okay? So as the rest theme, you've got mobility, stability, and conditioning. So the question that I asked myself that I came up with this was like, if I just had to pick one thing that tested all of those different areas, mobility, stability, and conditioning, that is something that could be scalable and easily accessible to everybody, and also, related to the overall, the primary test of the power life attribute, which is the Olympic lifting total. So taking all of those things into consideration, I was like, what would that be? And that's where I kind of came up with, okay, if you're getting better at this, basically how many reps can you do with the tempo at 50% of your body weight for an overhead squat? If that's improving, then at least in my perspective, that's like a good indicator that your overall stability, mobility, and conditioning relative to the Olympic lifting total is going up.
Gotcha.
Does that feel good to you?
Yeah. Well, I would say I love that, especially in terms of the Olympic lifts being the main kind of thing that we're looking at. I would say my only challenge to that would say for example, I guess just making sure we have modifications for people that obviously
yes,
maybe have struggled with the mobility aspect of overhead squat, because it's obviously a very physically demanding position to be in. That not a lot of people can go into at a very, especially under controlled speed, 3x3x3 tempo is that's slow, it's very intentional, yeah. Especially at 50% body weight, that's gonna be it's challenging. But I do agree that it's stability, that's coordination, that's conditioning, right? I guess what I would say is, on top of that too, is I guess to maybe like ask you a more rhetorical question, like, do we feel like that is one, the most accessible, and then also two, building a capacity? I'm wondering, like, do you feel like that is more applicable overall than, like, for example, like body weight movements? They're like, obviously body weight, like, granted, body weight doesn't necessarily apply, but we're talking about rest. We're talking about like giving you a general foundation of fitness, general foundation of, you know, overall like health, you know what I mean? Like, would that be a superior option than, like, you know what I mean? Like testing, like, just, you know, how long, you know, like a 10-minute run or something like that. Things, because, you know, obviously we train for like gait and for proper mechanics and all that stuff as well. So maybe, I guess, I like this a lot. And what I say is I want to keep this, but I'm thinking too, maybe like there's another layer that we add to it, maybe too, or maybe we find a way to like get like another test of like maybe like a general like fitness test, because again, ultimately, like, it's all going to work together. Like, you know what I mean? The more higher conditioning is, the more capacity you have, then the less those, like, you know what I mean? Like you said, like, as you begin to like learn the movements, the less taxing they are, the more like, you know, the more capacity you have to continue to like add more load. So I say, I like this, especially for like the higher level, like, you know, people like us, like people that are higher level. I love to do that. That sounds hard. It sounds like challenging. But again, for like the newer people who are like, you know, who maybe struggle to even get like a bar over the, you know, over their head in that position, and then you can go down to a squat. Maybe having modifications for that so that it's still scalable for them, and then two, maybe coming up with another physical result to maybe go, because really at the end of the day, the physical result / test, it could be one test, but it could also be a battery of tests. It could also be like, you know, one of like 3 different tests that we do. This could, you know, this is covering those things, but we could also figure out a way to cover, you know, your basic aerobic capacity, your basic, like, what is like your core strength like, things like that. So I say my feedback is keep this, but like, is there another way to like, you know, maybe add on something else to it too? Because I think there's a little more, especially in a rest year, starting from ground zero. I think that covers a lot of ground, but I think there's another, like maybe another layer or two to add on to it to really get a full picture of like, if someone walked into the gym, someone came to join us day one, this would be a great test to see their stability, their mobility and conditioning, but also like, how do you move? Like, what's your gait pattern like? Like, you know, how many push-ups can you do in a row? You know what I mean? Things like that, because that's all going to then lead into the, like, you know, the further picture. If that all makes sense?
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's part of what I was saying. I don't know if I mentioned on the camera, but like before, where it was like there's still some of the kind of feeling out, because that was some of the questions that I had. And, you know, again, like as I was thinking through it, it was like, obviously not everybody, some people can't even do 50% of their body weight, let alone, like you said, like even just hold a bar over their head.
Yeah.
So even just the progression to being able to do this, because for me, it's not, especially when we're thinking in broader terms of like the whole team or like anybody that may come into the team, it's not so much of importance that you're doing this better than like other people per se. But it's more of relative to where you start. So like day one, that might just be, I'm barely doing a body weight squat.
Right.
But then hopefully, ideally by the end, you know, with this being kind of the end goal in mind,
I like that.
Ideally by the end, it's like, okay, man, I can do 2 of these things.
Right.
Which is, again, if going from a body weight squat to being able to do that, like you said, it kind of like covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And I think with the rest theme, to kind of answer the other component of that, because I was been very like, with the whole theme of the programming, I've been really trying my best, which is why it honestly took me a while to even come up with this, was like just one thing. Because again, it's very easy to start, we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do that, do that. So my thinking to kind of answer the other part of what you brought up was like, because within each one of these phases, we can still touch on all of these different things. And I think, again, the overall theme of rest, especially like this first phase, is even though, yes, this may be the thing that we're really targeting as like a gauge of, okay, we're moving in the right direction. The overall theme of the rest is like, we're trying to kind of touch on everything and like just build this overall capacity and foundation. So it's like, you know, for instance, and I think, maybe not next week, but the last week we'll do week 1 of this cycle. And so I think even like week 1, it might be, we damn near, you know, we look at all the movement patterns. Like we literally touch on everything.
Right.
And maybe, yes, this is kind of the core, but we still, like doing some kind of gait, doing some kind of, like all the different movement patterns, which
Right.
again is like damn near completely opposite of what we've been focusing on.
Facts.
Where it's like just we want to snatch, clean, and jerk. No,
Right.
what the fuck you talking about? These lunges over here. No, snatch, clean, and jerk.
So this is then, so I guess one, perfect. Because I'm like, even if it's right, like even if it's not like we're actually testing all those different things, I do agree fully. Yes, the other parts should be touched, especially as we move through the different, phases of the year. But I guess to confirm, we're saying that this is like kind of like the result for the year. Like, I feel like we're trying to like this be kind of like the thing that we're focusing on all year long, trying to improve like the performance and the capacity for this test for physical.
This is just for this quarter.
Oh, okay. For the quarter. Okay.
Because the year as a whole, like I said, the main result
Okay.
is to establish a baseline
sure.
of
Then
all
that's-
of the different elements.
Then I'm good with that.
So for instance, and again, this is up to change, but like for the next quarter, the prep cycle, because remember, rest has to do with mobility, stability,
Right.
overall conditioning. So that was kind of like, okay, if we had to pick one test
Right.
that touched the capacity, that gauged the capacity for mobility, stability, conditioning, that's kind of what I came up with. And then in the prep phase, because the overall theme of the rest, like as a year, is capacity.
Right.
But then each one of the cycles has a different emphasis within the overall theme of capacity. Sorry, fucking get myself out. So the prep cycle is the capacity for hypertrophy and strength.
Okay.
So then the physical result / test for the prep cycle in the rest year is what I said with the 20 rep max
Yeah. Right.
squat, bench, deadlift. Because again, like, and the reason why it's 20 reps is because like we're not necessarily just trying to increase the squat, bench, and deadlift, or necessarily increase hypertrophy and strength, although those will be a byproduct. It's more of, at least in my perspective, in the rest theme, it's like we want to establish the capacity to be able to really push those things.
Which I love. And I'm good with that. I would say, but again, just looking at it from like a holistic perspective, like, because again, like, we clearly want to improve physical capacity, balance, coordination, and, overall conditioning. But again, as long as we're touching all the different movement patterns, even if they're not like officially, put as like a test, it's like I still think it, as long as like those things are being done, as long as we're still touching all those different realms and like getting all, because again, like that's the whole point of, in my opinion, like what the rest is supposed to be is like we're like building the foundation, like you said, like we're like getting, working on imbalances, working on like movement patterns and getting those things found in, because obviously, as you guys know, we're finishing up year 4. But the whole point of, again, like building up from year 1 to year 4 is building the capacity and then increasing the workload after the capacity is built. So like taking our time, getting all, because like you said, kind of like I think in the last video we talked about, like you're like at this point, at the peak of the peak, your form's kind of going to be what it is. You know what I mean? You kind of have to just trust it and like believe in yourself. But now we're going into the work that's going to allow you to like, mobilize your body and like strengthen up those different maybe stiff and like weak parts of your body. Like it's gonna do the work that's going to then allow you to get deeper in those squats and like move a little bit more efficiently, so your form can actually improve. Which even for myself and obviously for you, you can say for yourself, has taken time, years of stretching and mobility and strength movements, like years of that. So just you're getting a full realm of what all that kind of looks like. So yeah, no, with that being the case, I'm like, as long as we're touching on everything, I'm like, I'm good with that.
Yeah. And that's what I think the beauty of kind of this rest is, like, we have that freedom to then, like, we can play with a lot of different things, which, so now kind of not moving on, but like building on this. So like I said, there's a physical test, a mental test, and an emotional test for the cycle as a whole. Again, all related to the general theme. And I kind of mentioned it briefly, but the way that I kind of break it down, at least in my mind, my perspective is like the year is the theme. So like the rest is the theme for the year. And then the cycle is the emphasis. So whether it's a rest, prep, build, or peak, that's the emphasis within the theme. And then like the actual phase that we're in is the focus. And then the week is like the specific execution.
Gotcha.
Okay. And again, the way that that all actually plays out in real life, we're all going to find out. But that's kind of like, you know, taking the big theme and then going all the way down. So that way, in the big picture of things, we are touching all the different things. So, mental test. Whoops. / result is try 5 new things. And you'll see how this kind of shakes down a little bit. Try 5 new things. Because remember, mental and the rest is everything. The mental is novelty, coordination, communication. But again, we'll just keep going here. So the emotional test / result is number of consecutive days of spiritual practice greater to or equal than 5 minutes. So that's kind of like, you know, again, establishing some kind of, now we're kind of starting to expand out into just beyond just the physical stuff, but still tied into the programming as a whole. And I'll kind of give you my idea of how I see that breaking down week by week. So number of consecutive days of spiritual practice greater than equal to 5 minutes. Okay? And then / I call that a gong, which a gong is technically 100 days straight, but again, something to work towards without feeling like, you know, you're kind of locked into this thing. That's why I said just, you know, see how many consecutive days can I go? Can you go the whole damn cycle? We'll see. So these are the main results that this whole cycle is going to be built around. Obviously, we're going to touch on everything. But as far as like, what do we specifically want to get better at? It's kind of like with the life types and the Divine Nine. Like we have the intention, which like the intention is like, we want to touch on everything. We want to build this overall capacity and foundation. And then you have the actual result, which is like, okay, from the intention, what can we use? What can we come up with that's like this super specific thing to let us know that we're heading in the right direction and to build the system of the program around? All right. So these are like the specific results that are the manifestation of the intention, which is the important thing. All right. So we're all familiar. Well, let me get my blue back. We'll finish out the numbers here. And then the last part's pretty simple, but you just kind of, we'll tie it all together. So going here, what are we at? 28 minutes? We're good. So this is a 1, 1, 1 for the build, and then the 2, 2, 1, and then a 1, 1, 2, and then peak. So the build is the average, 1, 1, 2, and then we've got a 1, 1, 3. Whoa, watch out now. Gonna be peaking heavy on this bad boy. And then we got this would be a 2, 2, 1, and then a 1, 1, 1. Okay, and then obviously rest, 1, 1, 1. All right, so this part, you know, we're all kind of familiar with. We've done this before. And then kind of the new addition is instead of just the physical result, well, one, that's totally different than what we've been focusing on. It's just been the Olympic lifting total for the past couple cycles. And then now we have a mental test and result and then emotional test and result. And so the way that that'll look each week, and we'll kind of see how it shakes out when we actually do it. Let me get this guy. Oh, orange doesn't show up too well. Come on, girl. Come on now. Sure. All right. I think this one might be out. We'll see. So week 1, let me just do this. So week 1, obviously we'll have the training program that we've been doing, and we won't get into this today, but we might experiment with, because like before we were doing the first day of the week was prep, the second 2 days was build, and then the final 3 days was the peak, and then one rest. I think we might experiment and just see how it shakes out. Of like, the first 2 days are prep, the first 2 days are build, the next 2 days, or the second 2 days are build, the next 2 days are peak. So basically like Monday, Tuesday prep, Wednesday, Thursday build, Friday, Saturday peak, and then rest on Sunday. So kind of like even that out a little bit more, because we were putting more emphasis on the peak. So again, we'll kind of see how that breaks down. But so we have the overall, the same way that we do the program, where it's like, okay, here's the test, which again, depending on how it actually works out in real life, it may look like similar to where on Saturday or whatever, we're like, okay, we're just going to see where we're at with this. And then obviously throughout the whole week, we're like touching on all of the different areas, or it may look a little bit different. We'll kind of get to that when we get there. But then as far as the mental and the emotional result, so each week, and the way that I envision this as we build it, it'll almost kind of like turn into a game. So it's like we'll have, obviously we'll have the physical test result, but then we'll also have different little like mini games each week, which again, it's not like going to be anything crazy, although, it can be, depending on where we're at, it can be more or less involved. But essentially the first week is just create a list of, because the mental test is like try 5 new things. So week 1 on the rest is like just create a list of like different things that you might be interested in trying. So it's like we'll have little, almost like homework or little mini things going on each week. So create a list. Create list / explore options. Okay. And then week 2 would be like, basically, okay, well, I got my list now. It's kind of like this slow building thing. It was like, okay, I got my list. So week 2 would be like, well, let me just kind of pick a few of these and like really start to set some things in motion. And then all the while too, we got this emotional. So it'd be like kind of a similar thing of going, and that also opens the floor for us when we're doing the actual week breakdown, to where it's like, okay, here's some different options for different spiritual practices. Like maybe you want to go out and walk in nature. Maybe you want to actually like, sit down and meditate. Maybe you want to do Tai Chi and we show you how to do Tai Chi. Or maybe you just want to, put like on some music or something and just kind of be with yourself. Like there's so many different ways that it can look like. So it's kind of like, as we're actually doing the physical programming, we're also making progress on these other areas. So that it all starts to, because I see, this program, it all starts to come together. And at the same time, especially if you're doing the certification program, we're also teaching you how to tailor it specifically for you. Because obviously when we break down these in this format, it's more of like the team as a whole. But then through the certification program is where, one, we teach you how to build this all for yourself, and then we teach you like the intricacies of how this all works. And then at a certain level, it's like you have that capacity, in working with a coach, but even beyond that, of when you really get it down and you see how everything works, it's like, okay, now I can take this same framework and I can really customize it exactly to my wants and needs, like day to day. Because maybe, for the quarter 1 of this phase, it's like, you're in a completely different phase and you're like, that doesn't resonate with me at all. Like I just want to fucking max out. Like maybe that's where you're at. And again, it's cool. It's like you have that total freedom. You don't have to be locked into what we're doing here. But once you understand the principles behind it, you can use the same kind of framework to implement whatever it is that you want. Like maybe it is, you're still on the wave of like, I'm seeing really good progress with my Olympic lifts, and I want to, continue to increase my total. And so you can use a similar format. And even if you're like, I don't, this rest year doesn't resonate with me. Like I just want to peak every year, bro. You can still use the same idea, just to, throw some little things out there. Okay. So that's basically it. Obviously, again, might still be some questions and some unknowns, but like I said in the beginning, at least how I feel about it, it's like we've got it built out enough to where we just got to start doing the damn thing. And then once we start playing the game more and more, we'll get all the other details ironed out and we'll have some fun. along the way. Because like I said, I kind of see this being even like, you know, we can have fun with it, and then it can almost be like a little mini competition week to week where, yo, it's like, you know, how many squats did you do? And, you know, like prizes. I'm just trying to have fun, honestly. So, yeah, let us know when you have any questions, because I might not know.
Here we go. Hey, change is good, everyone. The shifting of the seasons. Obviously, we're going into December pretty soon and getting colder, and a lot of symbols, right? Like, embrace the change, embrace things, like embrace the unfamiliar. It's scary, and there's not as much certainty, so it's out of your comfort zone. But I've told you, like, I'll tell you that in this journey that we've been on, uncertainty leads to the most growth. Like, discomfort is what leads you to grow. If you embrace it, if you step into it, then it will probably lead you to a better place. So don't fight it, because again, we talked about it before, but the more you resist those things, resist the hard things and the changes, life will give it to you anyway, whether you want it or not. So you can embrace it and step into it willingly, you know what I mean? Or it will find you at some point anyway. So just be strong, be confident in yourself. The best is coming. Keep rolling.
All right, y'all. Till next time, let's keep it rolling.
Keep it rolling.
Peace.